Support for this podcast comes from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative, connecting communities with the resources, infrastructure, and networks to ensure a vibrant local free press.
From KVPR in Fresno, this is Central Valley Daily. It's Monday, February 10th. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. The new Trump administration is taking its immigration enforcement to places that were previously off limits, like schools.
And a lot of school districts here in the Valley have been ensuring that, ICE is not going to come into schools. But who knows how that'll play out.
We'll learn more about the response from schools and the community in just a few minutes. But first, these headlines. A man who was considered Fresno's last survivor of the attacks on Pearl Harbor has died. The Fresno Bee reports Navy veteran William Pratt died in late January at the age of 103. Funeral services were held last week. Pratt was 19 when he worked as a sailor. The Bee reports he was alone in a battleship when it was bombed and torpedoed. The U.S. was plunged into World War II days after the attacks. A few weeks ago, President Donald Trump ordered massive amounts of water diverted from 2 dams in the valley, falsely claiming it would be sent to Los Angeles to help battle wildfires. As KVPR's Joshua Yeager reports, it's too early in the growing season for farmers to get much use from that water either.
Many farmers in the Central Valley say they're standing behind Trump anyway.
I don't think Valley growers feel that this was in any way done as an intentional, attack on Valley agriculture.
Tricia Stever-Blattler runs the Tulare County Farm Bureau, which represents more than 1,000 growers in this area.
In general, farmers are supportive of what President Trump is trying to do in relaxing some of the really draconian environmental laws in California.
But any challenge to the way water is regulated in the state has an uncertain future. California sued over similar efforts during Trump's first term. For KVPR News, I'm Joshua Yeager in Bakersfield.
Fresno County health officials are on high alert after a bat tested positive for the rabies virus in Reedley. The health department says the bat may have been in contact with several feral cats. Infected animals can transmit the virus to humans through bites and scratches. While the virus is treatable if detected early, it's almost always fatal without treatment. Earlier this year, a Merced teacher died of rabies after coming into contact with an infected bat in her classroom. 2 people survived a plane crash in Kern County on Sunday. Fire crews responded around 11 a.m. to the crash site near Minter Field Airport, that's 15 minutes north of Bakersfield. They found a small plane upside down, but no smoke or fire was visible. Authorities say the 2 occupants crawled out on their own and declined medical treatment. They were not identified. The incident was turned over for investigation by the FAA.
Looking for a way to support KVPR but can't write that big check at the moment? What about that old unwanted car in the driveway? Your vehicle donation could net hundreds of dollars for KVPR. It's easy. We'll tow it away free of charge, KVPR gets a check, and you'll get a receipt for your taxes. And we can take RVs, boats, and motorcycles too. Find out more at kvpr.org/cars or call 855-277-2346.
And now to our main story. President Donald Trump's threats of mass deportations have created fear among immigrants nationwide. In the Valley and elsewhere, many immigrant families have been afraid to go to work or send their children to school. A recent change in immigration policies by the Trump administration has exacerbated an already tense situation. Now immigration authorities can enter churches, hospitals, and schools to make arrests. That has accelerated concerns, especially among parents. Last week, hundreds of students missed class or walked out of their campuses as part of mass protests over these mass deportation efforts. Just on Friday, about 300 students from McLean and Duncan Polytechnical High Schools in central Fresno staged a walkout and took to the streets to voice their protest. But school districts and local nonprofits in the Valley are also showing support for students. Today, we're talking about immigration enforcement and education with Esther Quintanilla. You might recognize Esther as a former KVPR reporter. She now covers English language learners for our news partner, the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative. She came to our studios to discuss how schools are dealing with recent changes to immigration policy.
Yeah, so this change mainly comes from the latest round of executive orders from Trump. He mandated that, there was going to be a rehaul of immigration enforcement, that he promised a bunch of mass deportations, and this is just part of that. In response to one of his executive orders, DHS said that they would be allowing ICE to enter churches, schools, hospitals, where they had previously been barred from. I think that was from a law in 2011. So now people are rightfully on edge entering those spaces, and a lot of school districts here in the Valley have been ensuring that, ICE is not going to come into schools, but who knows how that'll play out.
You have been in touch with school districts in the Fresno area. These are some of the largest districts in the state. What have officials told you about how they're responding to concerns around immigration by students and their parents?
Yeah, a lot of the school districts here have been very forthcoming and very proactive in ensuring that parents feel safe taking their kids to school. A lot of these resolutions that are now kind of coming into headlines and such were put into place in 2017, 2018, 2019 during Trump's first presidency. But this latest round of resolutions kind of announcing that ICE is not welcome in schools, that school officials were going to add more protections, more layers of protections at least. Those are kind of a reinforcement of their older policies, just to make sure that parents feel comfortable and safe with their students. Here in the Valley, a lot of students are immigrants, a lot of them are migrant students, a lot of them are undocumented, though there isn't like a formal count or anything like that. Parents are worried right now just taking their kids to school for that reason.
And those resolutions, those are being passed by the school boards, right?
Yes.
Okay. And I believe in your reporting you state that a student's legal status is not information that these school districts keep track of.
Yes. So I think it's against the law for schools to collect that data. And so when a child is enrolled onto campus, they just don't ask for that information, just to make sure that parents don't feel like their child is in a vulnerable position by being in that school.
So tell me about a particular gathering you attended recently at the Fresno Adult School. What was the purpose of the gathering and what did it look like?
Yeah, so I recently attended a Know Your Rights workshop hosted by the Education and Leadership Foundation and Fresno Unified. The purpose of the gathering was to give parents resources on what exactly their rights were during these ICE raids and kind of making sure that they knew how to, what their options were in the event that an ICE officer comes to their home or tries to approach their children, that kind of thing. And so a lot of what they were distributing was, you don't have to answer any questions. You don't have to open the door without a signed warrant by a judge. You don't have to say anything without a lawyer present. That kind of stuff was given and distributed to these parents, along with other documents kind of going over the process of setting up childcare in the event of a deportation in the household. And there's just a lot of different avenues and a lot of different resources that kind of follow that same line of thinking, just to make sure parents were prepared just in case of any situation that arises because of ICE in their neighborhoods.
Yeah, it sounds like these Know Your Rights workshops are not just happening at the Fresno Adult School. These are happening locally, right?
Yes, they're happening all over the city, all over the county. Education and Leadership Foundation is just one who's kind of popping up and doing them a lot more with schools, but there's also Civic. A lot of other immigrant rights groups are kind of working really hard to distribute this information and going to school boards, going to different neighborhood groups. A lot of them are moving to do them over Facebook Live or YouTube or something, just to make sure that the information is as accessible as possible.
You did speak to a mother recently for your reporting. Can you share with us some of the personal concerns that parents, with all of this immigration rhetoric swirling around, their concerns that they're having?
Yeah, so the mom that I spoke to, her name is Maura, and she's a mom to a 5-year-old who's enrolled at Fresno Unified. And she was very nervous during this workshop, and you could tell that there was something on her mind. So when I talked to her afterward, she was very honest with me and was like, and told me that she was an asylum seeker. She's going through the process of, securing her documents, making sure that she can stay in this country. And she just was very vulnerable and was like, I'm worried taking my child to school. I am really worried about taking them to work or to the grocery store. She really had a lot of concerns about what her options were if, for whatever reason, her asylum application didn't go through. So those are some of the concerns from her. And then I also spoke with a couple other Latina moms at a different school in Fresno Unified, and they had similar concerns. They were worried about what would happen if ICE were to make an appearance at one of their schools. They just want to know exactly what's going on and how they could navigate that situation.
The threat of deportations isn't new. People are deported in any administration, but of course, Trump's rhetoric on this issue is much louder than many of his predecessors. How did these schools respond the last time Trump was in office?
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, a lot of these schools were kind of passing these resolutions in response to a lot of the rhetoric going around during the first Trump presidency. Fresno Unified passed their resolution in 2018, I believe, kind of stating that their school was open for all children, regardless of race, gender, immigration status, that kind of thing. So a lot of the schools in this region are very understanding toward different student situations. A lot of them are very aware at how sensitive a lot of this is for families. So they've been very aware of how to go about this situation and how to make sure to get the resources that parents need into their hands.
Lastly, Esther, it seems like these community groups we spoke about are really starting to kick into gear here going forward. And based on your reporting, how are community groups planning to continue to educate schools and students around immigration? You reported that they want to spread, quote, power, not panic.
Yes. So a lot of that comes from just making sure that parents have access to these workshops. The Education and Leadership Foundation let me know that, there was a lot of different school districts who were reaching out to them anonymously to host workshops that were not advertised to the public, just to make sure that parents felt, or parents who were in a sensitive situation felt comfortable attending and, getting that knowledge that they need. So a lot of it is just spreading as much information as possible, distributing red cards that have, basic info about different rights and such. So a lot of it is just making sure information is available and accessible to the people who need it.
All right, we'll leave it there. We've been speaking with Esther Quintanilla. She's a reporter for the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative and has been reporting on the challenges of immigration policy on education. Thanks for joining us, Esther.
Yeah, thank you, Liz.
And that's today's show. Today's episode was produced by Jonathan Linden and KVPR with support from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. Find the latest local news anytime at kvpr.org.
Each morning, it's a new opportunity, a chance to start fresh. Up First from NPR makes each morning an opportunity to learn and to understand. Choose to join the world every morning with Up First, a podcast that hands you everything going on across the globe and down the street, all in 15 minutes or less. Start your day informed and anew with Up First by subscribing wherever you get your podcasts.